Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind Show right here in Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, welcome. This is a channel where we discuss lots of motorsports, namely NASCAR, ARCA, IndyCar, and Formula One. Those are the series that we cover right now. We do plan to broaden that scope eventually, but that's what we cover at the moment. So on today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind Show, we're looking back at last night's Coca-Cola 600 from the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Longest race on the Cup Series schedule. And we'll just go ahead and start with the highlights. Unfortunately, not a lot of highlights to work with today. I'm at the mercy of whatever NASCAR gives me for highlights. And today they didn't give me a lot, so we're gonna roll with that. So we'll start off with the initial green flag. Kyle Busch and Joey Logano on the front row. Denny Hamlin and Eric Jones starting third and fourth, second row behind them. Jumping a few more laps into the race, Austin Dillon would bring out the first caution at lap 38. And then Kevin Harvick at lap 85 had put together a very valiant run through the field, started 39th after failing pre-qualifying inspection and not getting out to make a lap in qualifying. Had worked his way all the way into the top 5 and blows the left front tire in 3 and 4. And that would end his day because it totally destroyed that car. That would be the end of the day for Kevin Harvick, lap 85. No more incidents to the end of Stage 1. Kyle Busch would be your Stage 1 winner. Stage 2, William Byron with an incident in turn number 1, lap 116, would bring out the caution. And shortly thereafter, lap 121, just after we had gone back, green flag, Jimmy Johnson goes for a slide in turns 3 and 4. Joey Logano, trying to avoid him, also spins. Neither one of them hits anything, which is amazing. They both were able to continue from that point. No more incidents after that. To the end of Stage 2, Kyle Busch would also win Stage number 2. Stage number 3, Greg Gaulding in the 23 car for BK Racing takes a slide down the front stretch, lap 227. And Chris Buescher also with an incident, lap 260, to bring out the caution. Shortly after we go back, green flag from that, Kyle Larson takes a long, lazy spin through turn number 1. The interesting thing about this wreck was that he wheel hopped, which is what made him loose and what got him up into the outside wall initially. Then he slides all the way through turn 2, gathers it up, doesn't hit anything after sliding along the wall for a second at the beginning. The wheel hop is what is amazing to me, though, because you don't see wheel hop on big tracks like this. Really, you only see wheel hop on short tracks, on road courses, places like that. So that just shows how aggressive these setups are right now. The fact that you can wheel hop on a track like that, and it's going to be interesting going forward to see if this becomes a regular thing. And the final incident of Stage number 3, lap 280, shortly after we'd gone back, green flag from the Kyle Larson incident. Ryan Blaney blows up in a shower of fire in turn 1. We actually do have video of this that you're seeing right now. A few laps earlier, Ryan had reported to the team that he felt like the engine was going away and that it was probably going to blow, and they told him, run it till it blows. Well, he ran it till it blew, literally. So that was the end of the night for Ryan Blaney, and such a heartbreak because he was having such a good night too. Running inside the top 5 most of the night. I don't think he could have really touched Kyle Busch, but Kyle Busch was kind of in a class of his own. Speaking of Kyle Busch, he also took Stage number 3. No incidents whatsoever. Stage number 4, no cautions for the final 100 laps of this event. The only lead change, even in Stage number 4, was during green flag pit stops when Denny Hamlin led for 2 laps. Otherwise, Kyle Busch led the entire thing all the way to the checkered flag. And Kyle Busch would pick up the victory, the clean sweep of the night, the pole, all 4 stages race win. Kyle Busch would take his 47th Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series victory. And this checks off the final box for him as being the final track that he had not won on in Cup Series competition. Kyle Busch has now won on every track on the current Cup Series schedule. 9 lead changes on the night among 4 drivers. Kyle Busch far and away led the most laps, 377 of the 400 total laps. Next closest was Joey Logano with 12. Denny Hamlin led 9, and Brad Keselowski led 2 laps on the night. So, as we get into the results, we already mentioned Kyle Busch, the winner of this one. Far and away the fastest car in the field. There was no one touching him at all, which is interesting because usually, especially in the Coke 600, with this day-to-night transition and the long length of this race, generally, if you are the fastest car in the beginning, that doesn't last to the end of the race. Now, Martin Truex Jr. in 2016 was the exception. That win even more dominating than this one from Kyle Busch, as Truex led 392 laps that night. But still a very dominating win from Kyle Busch, and I think very surprising to me and probably a lot of other people, just the fact that he was able to be dominant in the beginning, dominant in the middle, and dominant at the end of the race. You don't see that a lot in the Coke 600. Usually the guys that are dominant in the beginning kind of fall off throughout the rest of the race. Did not happen with that 18 car. Martin Truex Jr. comes home in the second position, the only car within about 15 seconds of Kyle Busch at the end of this race, and he was about 5 seconds behind Busch. So just the absolute disparity here, that just nobody was even close to that 18 car by the end of the race. Just absolutely phenomenal. Rest of your top 5, Denny Hamlin in third, Brad Keselowski. Jimmy Johnson comes home with a top 5 finish there in 5th. Definitely the strongest run we have seen out of that 48 car this season. And if you're a Hendrick Motorsports fan or a Jimmy Johnson fan, definitely something to be happy about going forward, because I think this might be something to show that they are finally turning the corner and that they can probably put up some decent results going forward through the rest of the season. Rest of your top 10, Jamie McMurray. Kyle Larson rebounds from his spin late to finish in 7th. Kurt Busch, Alex Bowman puts a second Hendrick Motorsports car in the top 10 in 9th. And Ricky Stenhouse rounds out the top 10 in 10th. First car 1 lap down. That's another thing to note, is that Kyle Busch lapped everyone except the top 9 in this race. As we look down through the rest of the field, Chase Elliott had a very strong run on the night as well. Just fell short of a top 10. Was running in the top 10 with about 10 to go before Stenhouse got by him. Definitely probably would have been the first time 3 Hendrick cars have been in the top 10 this season. In fact, that might even be the first time there's been 2 Hendrick cars in the top 10 this season. Clint Bowyer comes home in the 12th position. Eric Almirola, who had a very strong run throughout the night, I believe he was as high as 3rd at one point, comes home in 13th. Paul Menard 14th. Daniel Suarez was kind of up and down throughout the night, never really looked all that competitive. Comes home in 15th. Bubba Wallace, another one that never really saw him up front, but he was never really a back marker on the night either, which is, I don't know how you would describe this season for Bubba Wallace, because it seems like some races he really overperforms for that 43 car. Some races it feels like he's kind of underperforming, and then some races it feels like he's putting it right where that 43 car should be. So I don't really know how you would describe the season thus far for Bubba Wallace. Best finish so far this season for Matt Kenseth in that 6 car. Maybe they are finally turning the corner just slightly with that car. He ran mid-20s most of the night and was able to rebound, though, for a decent top 20 finish here. Eric Jones had one of the faster cars on the night, just continued to have problem after problem. Just at one point, they're having a pit stop, and Casey Kane pulls into the pit stall in front of him, and cuts it a little close and rips the air gun out of the front tire changer for Eric Jones' hands. Like, how often does that happen? How often do you have freak things like that happen? But that happened to Eric Jones last night and relegated him to probably a much worse finish than he should have had. Joey Logano fought some issues all night. Never got stage points on the night, actually, but did lead 12 laps, as we noted earlier. Just one of those nights. I don't know how else you would describe it other than just one of those nights that Joey Logano would probably like to forget and just move on to Pocono. 22nd for Joey Logano. Down through the rest of the field, we look at the bottom portions of the field here. Austin Dillon, as we mentioned, he had problems early, just never really could rebound from that. 34th on the night, 52 laps down. Ryan Newman also with issues, 35th on the night. Not a great night for Richard Childress Racing. Ryan Blaney, we saw his issues, 36th on the night for him. Matt DiBenedetto out at lap 257 with an oil leak, 37th. William Byron in 39th. We talked about his issues. He was out early with that accident, 39th. And Kevin Harvick, of course, his struggles well documented. Had a great car. Just wasn't really able to get too far into the race and show how great it really was. 83 laps completed for that 4-car and 40th on the field. Only his second DNF of the year. The other one being in the Daytona 500. So that is your results on the night. Now let's head over to the Charlotte Motor Speedway Media Center and we will hear from your top 3 finishers, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, and Kyle Busch, to hear about their nights.
Well, yeah, we came in from damage with the 48. We had to use one extra set of tires, so we were a little bit worried about our tire allotment. We were short on tires, which is hard to believe in the Cup Series. But yeah, we were worried about being short on tires, so we had to stay out one time when we really didn't want to, and then that set us back, and we lost some stage points. And but overall, we kind of battled back to where I think we should have been.
It's the best position to be in. I mean, I think everybody out there wants to be there. So, those guys did an awesome job all night, obviously, with qualifying on the pole and perfect pit stops. I don't think they ever lost the lead any time except for green flag stops when it was cycling around. So they did an incredible job, had a really fast car. And, for us, I felt like I felt early on like we were, probably second best to him, and then, screwed up on pit road. And we had 2 pit road penalties in a row. So it was tough to come from the back, but, it was one of those nights where we just fought till the end and felt like we had a second place car to Kyle. So I think that last run we were catching him a bit there, but he's probably just managing his lead and taking care of his tires. So we were just off a little bit tonight, but definitely gaining on it, and hopefully we can get some more wins here pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, just for me, as a team here, we've been so close to getting Kyle a victory at Charlotte. I feel like we had the car to beat this race last year, and got snookered on fuel mileage there, and today to kind of come out in a dominant fashion and win all the stages from the pole and keep them out front, and the pit crew to do such a good job and be able to keep up with the track and kind of close that gap maybe that we've been missing some speed here to some of our competitors. Felt really good, and it's it's important for me to help Kyle accomplish his goals, and this was a big one for him and makes the victory a little bit more sweeter.
Well, somebody already had to give me the bad news and tell me it's only for 100 days, so that sucks. But, certainly pretty cool tonight, and having the opportunity of what I've been able to do and what I've been able to accomplish. We've been talking about it here in this room for a few years now, and we've come oh so close a few times, but was able to finally close the deal out tonight. So feels so good to win here in Charlotte. It's everybody's backyard, they always say, and, we live just down the road, so it's so cool to spend a couple weeks at home and to have the family here. And Brexton's birthday, I missed the opportunity to win on his birthday in the truck race last week, so hopefully this repays him a little bit for that. He was pretty jacked in victory lane, so I don't think he cared. He was excited regardless. So just a phenomenal night, though. Adam Stevens and everybody on this Joe Gibbs Racing Toyota was just on it, and that M&M's Camry was fast and wanted to stay up front, and you know, it was pretty easy to do that with something driving so good.
And now we'll take a look at the playoff grid following this 59th annual Coca-Cola 600. And we'll see where your driver currently falls into the playoff grid. Not a lot of changes here. Obviously, another notch in the win column for Kyle Busch as he moves up to 4 wins on the season. On the guys locked in on wins, the only changes there is Truex jumps over Boyer to move up a spot after his second place finish. The only other real change here for the guys in on points is Blaney, after his engine issue, drops 2 spots below Larson and Almirola, down now to the 12th position for Ryan Blaney. Otherwise, not a lot of changes here. As you'll see down there at the bottom, 19th and 20th. Suarez and McMurray now close to the playoff picture. Not really, I wouldn't say in the playoff picture yet, because they're a good chunk of points back from 16th. But they're closer to it now, as Ryan Newman and William Byron both had bad nights and they fall out of the top 20. So that is your playoff grid, and we'll see where your favorite driver falls on that. And I believe that will do it for tonight's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind show. Thank you for joining me tonight. We will have a pole position up later tonight. I don't know if it'll be up at 8 at the normal time or not. This show might affect it just slightly in terms of when it goes up, but there will be a pole position later tonight to recap, quick recaps of the Coke 600, Xfinity race from Charlotte, the Indy 500, and Monaco. So you want to check that out as well. So if you haven't done it already, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you don't miss a thing from Racing News Now. Hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It is much appreciated when you do. And don't forget to support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/racingnewsnow. It's not required by any means, but we do appreciate it when you do help us out on there, because it just helps us continue to grow and give you better quality content into the future. So with that, this has been the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series Rewind Show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.